am the educational content lead for Twinkl Australia for languages. So I essentially work in the background and decide what we work on for our languages. And obviously our biggest languages you'll probably notice on site are Indonesian and German. We do have Auslan come through and Japanese, and we're hoping to expand this over the next couple of years as well, so that we can cover a few more key languages that are taught in Australian schools. We also love feedback at any point about our language resources and what you're looking for. So feel free, if you ever have any suggestions, to flick them through to Twinkl Care, and we can try to accommodate them as best we can. I am a primary teacher trained and have been on mat leave for a few years. So this is how I ended up with Twinkl. But I love it, and I love my work that I do with them. And yes, so that's pretty well what I do within Twinkl. Next, we have Bethan, our specialist in Lightning Languages. She's UK based, and I'm going to pass it over to her to tell you more about Lightning Languages.
Brilliant. Thank you, Grace. Good evening, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you sharing about Lightning Languages. So I am Grace's equivalent in the UK, really, in that I'm the content lead for languages. And we've been working really closely together over the last few months to look more about how we can broaden our appeal and make sure that we're accommodating teachers' needs in a range of countries, so that it isn't just England for us, but we also look at the wider UK, but also at Australia, Canada, the United States, New Zealand, because it's really important to me as a language specialist that people are able to access quality language teaching. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about Lightning Languages and how that can support you with the Australian curriculum, and how we at Twinkl can support you with that. So in this session this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background behind the scheme and some of our curriculum principles, to show you a little bit more about the content and how that actually breaks down for what you can use in your lessons, something about our resources for younger learners to meet our characters, and how you can use it in the classroom in Australia, practically speaking. So at the moment, our scheme is only for French and Spanish, which are still two languages which, we clearly see from our downloads are regularly taught in Australia. And then obviously we're working now with Grace and the Australian team on expanding that collection so that we can look at Indonesian, German, Japanese, etc., and, extend that beyond in the future. But also to look at a multilingual approach as well. So it isn't just about adding in more languages, but also to look at how we approach all those languages, so that learners in all countries can get to learn about the importance of language learning in general, the importance of culture, the importance of that intercultural connectivity, all keywords which appear throughout, the key Australian curriculum documents. So that's what we're really trying to enhance as well, is not just the individual languages that we offer, but also the whole package for languages and how teachers are supported, particularly non-specialist teachers, if you're delivering a language that you yourselves are not very confident with. So I want to give you a little bit to the background to our scheme, Lightning Languages, which we're really proud of, mainly because of its flexibility and how it offers a wealth of opportunities to access language teaching wherever you're teaching. And I feel really strongly about this. So myself, I live in Wales, but we sort of work in the England market, and schools teach things slightly differently in Wales from in England. However, if somebody's learning a language, the principles of those languages are exactly the same in whichever country you're teaching in. And I actually got talking to some Scottish colleagues about it, and they were talking about the national curriculum, because in England we often see the English national curriculum referred to as the national curriculum. And the Scottish teacher said to me, but the thing is, in Scotland we have a national curriculum as well. And it made me think, which is that the English curriculum isn't the only national curriculum. Everybody has a national curriculum. And this kind of really forced me to rethink what I was doing, because it started off that I was making and developing a scheme for teachers in England. And it made me stop and think, well, do you know what? Actually, that's not what I'm trying to achieve here. That's not what I want to aim for. So I started to look at the similarities and differences, first of all, across the UK and in Ireland. And I could see that even though little things like when children started learning a language, or which language they learned, or how often they learned a language, or any of those sorts of things, fundamentally, the purpose is the same. all language curricula were saying we want children to broaden their horizons, we want to foster curiosity, we want to learn about other cultures. And when I started looking at it, these words were appearing everywhere: cultural diversity, inclusivity, promote global understanding, global citizenship. All of these phrases were appearing wherever I looked. So this was really exciting to me, because I thought, well, our fundamental purpose, whatever we're teaching, whatever language we're teaching, whether we're teaching Japanese or Spanish, it's the same. This is what we want from children. We're not expecting them at the end of their primary years to be fluent in a language, but we are expecting to have broadened their horizons. So this was really exciting to me with the development of Lightning Languages, particularly when I started working with Grace and the Australian team, because then I looked at the Australian curriculum and it made me realize that everything that's said here is exactly the same. We're looking to broaden horizons. This phrase, broadening horizons, appears in pretty much every single language curriculum that I've seen for primary schools in any countries. I've been looking at Canadian ones recently in New Zealand. It's exactly the same. You know, it's looking at this. It's negotiating experiences and meanings across languages and cultures. And it made me think, this is what I want to make for teachers. This is the scheme that I want. I want teachers, wherever they're teaching a language, wherever that is, whatever that language might be, that we can start to build those connections, to broaden those horizons. And fundamentally, wherever we live, that we are teaching children that there is a world outside their doorstep. And that's what I feel really strongly about, that with learning a language, it's about opening the minds, really. And that's what I really want to do. And similarly, it sort of goes on with the Australian curriculum to look at the interrelated aims of languages, well, developing linguistic competence, understanding languages and culture, and children understanding themselves as communicators. Those fundamentally are the aims of all language schemes. So this to me was really exciting, because I knew then straight away that Lightning Languages and what I had envisaged could also work for Australia. So, you know, this is where our kind of conversations began, and we started looking at this. And then I started looking at our customer base, and I could see that customers in Australia were starting to use our resources. And I really wanted to make sure that you as teachers felt supported using them, and also knew what was coming next, so that you knew and felt confident in using the scheme and how you could use that to support your learners. So our aims, as I said, we wanted to make an adaptable, fully flexible scheme of work with lessons that can be taught in any primary classroom. And by any primary classroom, I mean whether that's in Wales, in Scotland, Australia, Canada, wherever. If you're teaching French or you're teaching Spanish, that you could pick up one of these lessons and teach it wherever you are, because fundamentally the purpose of what we're doing is the same. I also wanted to make sure that the burden on teachers wasn't too great, because I'm well aware that although I'm a language specialist myself, and that's my area, I'm well aware that languages can be an area that causes a lot of anxiety for teachers if they're not specialists, particularly if they're teaching a language that they themselves don't know or only have limited knowledge for when they themselves were at school. And that can be really nerve-wracking. So I wanted to make sure that our resources would support teachers, but also allow you to build a curriculum that you were confident in, that it could fit the needs of what you needed. So, you know, and I also wanted something really flexible, that if you already had your plans in place and you were just looking for something to supplement that, you could dip in and dip out and use it for that as well, or you could use it to build an entire program for teaching. And it's that flexibility that I think really allows us to be used in other countries and allows this to work, because it can match to whatever your needs are, really, which is what's really exciting about it. So the things that helped us develop, and this will be the same whichever language we branch out to in future. So obviously working with Grace and her team on furthering Indonesian, German, Japanese, you know, to support the fact that these are really popular languages for teaching in Australia. Regardless of whether you're teaching French or Spanish or accessing any of those, what I wanted to think about as a fundamental thing was, how can we celebrate language learning? It's such an area. In the UK, it causes a lot of anxiety for teachers because they're not specialists teaching. And that's the same everywhere, because, you know, not all primary teachers are going to be experts in every single subject. And I wanted to use the opportunity to help give teachers confidence and to celebrate language learning in general, not just of that individual language as well, to help children broaden their horizons to start stretching their perspectives, to help them develop empathy and to think of others, to think of other communities and cultures. Also to start to challenge stereotypes. So if you're learning French, for example, the first thing that, you know, we see pictures of, people will have a baguette, they'll have a croissant. But actually, there's more to learning a language than just thinking about a baguette or a croissant or those stereotypes. And it's the same thing of moving away from that. It's getting children ready to have real conversations, to think about what identity means to them. So that's getting them to think about, you know, and this is, you know, the same in Australia, to think about Indigenous languages, to think about any home languages, any community languages, and to think about how that comes into the mix as well, and how that really helps to form identity, and how we can celebrate home languages and also involve that in our language learning. So it becomes a really positive experience, whatever language you're teaching. And this was kind of it, really, was, you know, I wanted it to be called Lightning Languages because I wanted the lessons to be quick and accessible. I wanted them that you could pick them up and deliver them, regardless of whether you were a specialist or an expert, that you've got different levels of expertise in your school. You yourself might be a specialist, but you might have teachers in your team who are delivering the subject who are not specialists. All teachers all over the world struggle with time for planning. So, you know, I wanted something that was going to be straightforward and easy, that we could support people that didn't know where to begin, that we could say, well, look, this is where you go. And also about making sure that you could support your curriculum goals. This was really important to me, that I could show consistent and trackable progress, but also flexibility, so it's going to fit your setting, because wherever you're teaching, it's going to be slightly different. Even from city to city, from two schools in a neighbouring community, you may find one school will have an hour a week for languages, some might have half an hour, and that changes dramatically in terms of what you can accomplish. So I wanted to make sure that we had something flexible to support that. And, you know, this is kind of one of our kind of marketing taglines, but, you know, it's about sort of whizzing through these languages, and they're topic based, so you can whiz through lessons with confidence and knowing that you're delivering all of the skills that your children are going to need to have success and meet the curriculum expectations. So this is the first thing that this has just gone live this morning. We're really proud of this. I've worked in conjunction with Grace and Elke from the Australian team on this to make sure that we have got a full and detailed subject progression map that covers the Australian curriculum, the New South Wales curriculum, and the Victorian curriculum, to show to you how our resources are fully curriculum aligned, to show you how, for the key skill areas of listening, speaking, reading and writing, which are phrased differently in all curricula, but fundamentally that's the same thing that we want children to do. They have to learn the basics of phonics, grammar, vocabulary, and they need to have cultural understanding. We've shown how we meet all of those throughout our schemes. So that is now live and available for you to access, so that you can teach this scheme with confidence. And these progression maps will cover whichever language you're teaching. So as Lightning Languages develops and we bring out further languages, these progression maps will give you that confidence that whichever language you're teaching, whether it's French or German or Indonesian, that we have based it on the curriculum principles that we need for wherever you're teaching, so that we are taking those into account. So that's really important to us as well, that you feel supported and you have the documentation you need to be able to track it appropriately as a teacher or a subject leader as well, and feel confident that you're complying with everything you need to do in the classroom. So these are our principles of the scheme as well. I'll talk a bit more about our characters and the vision and the sort of vibe for it in a moment, but just to give you some of our principles, just so that you know, before you kind of look at it and see that it does look really fun and vibrant, also that you realize there's real pedagogy behind it that you can feel confident in as a teacher. So as I've said, we want to develop essential skills in vocabulary, phonics and grammar, which are the three kind of pillars that underpin language learning, because whichever language you're learning, you have to be able to pronounce it, to know the words, and to glue those words together with structures. So we want to build confident communicators across the skill areas of reading, writing, listening and speaking. We're looking at patterns, sounds, and really focusing on developing understanding. We focused on progressive skill development. So we've got high frequency words, topic-based expressions and sentence structures that build in complexity. We have a lightning theme, a kind of spacey kind of theme where everything is a mission, and our lessons are missions with a mission aim. which is, you know, what we plan to learn in that lesson, checkpoints throughout that enable you to kind of assess and see how your children are learning, and to promote confident, authentic communication. We've got grammar and phonics throughout. We've got videos. We've got native speaker audio. So there's sound files in there. So if you yourself are not confident with pronunciation, or even just because, even if you are confident with pronunciation, you're not a native speaker of those subjects, you will hear native speaker audio so that your students can hear authentic pronunciation in class as well, phonetic activities, and supporting all of those connections. We've got the main structures are built in with Liftoff and in Orbit, and I'll explain to you how the units are structured through, but students will learn through structured repetition and will build progress, building from words to sentences, really making sure that we meet those curriculum goals and building progress along the way. Obviously with languages is far more of a cumulative impact as you're going along. So it isn't just a case that, you know, progress is always linear. Sometimes progress is up and down because you may stop and you have to revisit and you go things. But fundamentally, our aim is that children at the end of their primary years will have made progress in the language that they've been studying and will have met the curriculum goals. We've also really focused on inclusion and adaptive teaching here. So we've got a range of different strategies and suggestions and support packs to really help engagement and really help boost appeal to all levels within your classroom. And also effective assessment, because assessment needs to be in there depending on what your policy is within your school or department in terms of when you need assessment. But we have regular informal assessments that will allow you to keep track of progress, but also then summative assessments at the end of units that you can actually see how students have progressed and work towards those goals as well. If you've got any comments or questions or anything you want to ask, please do pop them in the chat. Emily and Louise will be keeping a track of those throughout, and you know, along with Grace, we can answer those later. But if you've got any comments or anything you want to say at the moment, please do pop those in the chat. You know, happy to stop and look at those, or happy to pick them up later. So if you've got any comments, please do reach out. We're, you know, here to help. Really, I really want you to feel supported as language teachers in Australia, and that you know that you can ask questions and get trustworthy answers to them. So a little bit more about the actual scheme itself. So we've split the two main teaching levels into Liftoff and in Orbit. And something I was really conscious about is that wherever you're teaching, your classes or year groups might be called the same. Might not be called the same. So in England, for example, there is Key Stage 1, Key Stage 2 at primary years. So you'd have lower Key Stage 2 and upper Key Stage 2. But those terms are not used in Scotland and Ireland or Wales. They're not used, obviously, in Canada. They're not used in Australia. So I wanted to make sure that we offered a scheme that was inclusive to everybody and you could see what fitted in with you. So Liftoff is targeting 7 to 9-year-olds realistically, and in Orbit 9 to 11-year-olds. So older primary learners, so slightly younger primary learners for Liftoff and slightly older primary learners for in Orbit. In Orbit just offers a little bit more grammar, a little bit more challenge, a little bit more complexity of ideas. So for example, in the Liftoff, you might learn about clothes, but in Orbit, you might learn about fashion. So it's taking clothes a little bit further and thinking a bit more about, so, you know, in Liftoff, it's learning about weather, but in Orbit, it's perhaps learning about the environment. So the ideas are a little bit more complex as well. And generally the thought processes and those sorts of things. That's the kind of thing. However, they are flexible and both can be taught at any age, but fundamentally, that's how we've split it apart. And as I've said, they're not labelled for different year groups, because even in Australia, for the different curriculum, you've got stages and levels. So I wanted to make sure that it was inclusive wherever you were teaching, that it wasn't labelled with a specific year group that you felt, you know, made it hard, because you might open it for your class and your students would say, well, that's not for us. Similarly, if you want to teach the older level to younger learners or the younger level to older learners, you can do, because there are no sort of ages on that, and you can feel confident that children won't feel excluded because they've got, you know, younger resources, for example. Our units are set out into different topic areas. So common topic areas that are taught wherever you're learning a language, such as colours, the weather, pets, parts of the body, learning about school, learning about home, learning about your town, transport, for example. All of those kind of very familiar, very common topics, whichever language you're learning. And within a unit, you will find lesson PowerPoints. There's a sentence building pack to help learners actually put together and structure sentences, a range of interactive games. There's an ebook with audio, which again has got native speaker sound files so they can hear everything in the language. We've got culture video, culture quizzes, 3 pillars quizzes, which 3 pillars videos, which talk about the 3 pillars of vocabulary, phonics and grammar, because they are the 3 pillars of language learning, and activity booklets and songs, which we really love as well, which are our karaoke songs that enable you to, you know, have a real bit of fun with the language as well. So a real vibrant mix of resources that allows you to tailor these to your classes and what they need at any one time. So you'd have a structure of 3 or 4 PowerPoint lessons, which all have sound files within them, and they would follow, you know, a structure for the unit. And those are your kind of bedrock foundations for the unit, are your fundamental lessons that we aim those to last around 30 minutes each. So you'd have 3 or 4 30-minute lessons, but the idea is that you could build up an entire sequence of teaching with all of the other resources as well. So we have an activity booklet that will support everything in all of those lessons, the sentence building pack, which will follow on and give you another lesson to add on. We've got the ebook, all of the interactive games, we've got an assessment and various things. So at the end of it, you can end up with around 6 weeks worth of teaching, and you could fill an hour or half an hour every time if you needed, depending on what's available. So our activity booklets are packed with a range of activities, you know, fun activities as well. There are brain breaks in there too, such as colouring and more fun activities, as well as, you know, sentence and grammar based tasks in there to really help students focus on what they've learnt in the lessons. We've got videos, so as I've said, 3 pillars and culture videos. So we're at pains to point out that if you're learning about French, you're learning French, that French isn't only spoken in France, that French is spoken around the world. So we would learn about, you know, other countries where French is spoken. So learning about pets, well, we've tried to weave in a way that how you fit that in with culture, or we've looked at, or what are the most common pets in the French speaking world, or something about the former king of France and the pets he used to keep, for example, and things like that. So we've tried to weave in areas of culture that enable children to think beyond that. If you're learning French or Spanish, it's not just France and Spain, it's about the world, and learning about where languages are spoken. And obviously then the 3 pillars, which is a focus on vocabulary, phonics and grammar, again with native speaker pronunciation and little quizzes that students can use to test their learning as they're going along. And these are great for home learning as well. They're great for homework, for individual study. They're great for little group work. They're great for retrieval practice, just a bit of revision. You know, they're really flexible and useful. If you don't want to use them, because they do have English accents, if you don't want to use them in your teaching all of the time, they're also really useful nevertheless, you know, for additional work as well and support. As I said, we've got our super ebooks, which are really lovely, and they contain full native speaker audio, so students can follow along and listen to the accurate pronunciation. We've got a range of interactive games. There's a culture quiz, so all about culture around whatever that topic is related to the French or Spanish speaking world. We've got retrieval quizzes and interactive games that allow students to practice word and sentences, to practice all of the phrases that they've learnt. We've also got our sentence building pack, which is something that's a real growing movement in language teaching, which is about building and using languages and tools as a building block. So they learn the words and phrases, and then they start to slot them together. So they come with different resources to help students put together and actually then use the language practically and build sentences. So they're not just learning words in isolation, they are kind of putting them together. They're almost like a jigsaw pack, really, that to help our learners of languages jigsaw together everything they've learned in the lessons and to put them together afterwards into full sentences. Every single unit comes with a unit pack, a curriculum links and overview pack, and within that lesson there's no reference. Within the unit overview there is no reference to any country within this. This is designed for, if you're teaching this resource wherever you may be, this is how you can teach it. So there's no reference to the curriculum in there. What is in there at the moment are curriculum links documents for England, Wales, Scotland and Ireland, but my plan is to work with the Australian team, and by the end of the year to have the curriculum links documents for Australia and Canada also added into these documents as well, so that you can tick off every single unit to see how that works. And that will also be replicated in any other languages that are produced by the Australian team. So you will have full confidence, not only does the whole scheme meet Australian expectations, but actually the individual units will help you see exactly what works as well, and you know what's following with your curriculum. So as you can see on the left hand side, these are the curriculum links documents that we currently have. They're kind of tick boxes. So as I've said, we're going to have those boxes coming soon for Australia, New South Wales and Victorian curricula to support those, to show that every single unit complies individually on that level as well. We also have a range of adaptive resources and assessment resources, so to support learners who might need additional support: word mats, knowledge organisers, flashcards, sentence starter cards, formative assessment grids, and an end of unit test that you can use as well to test progress and see how that's going. So those are all our unit resources and things that you can see. We also have our Sparks resources, which are designed for younger learners. Now, we've aimed these at under sevens, but they could be taught at any age realistically. They could also be used for a languages club. They could be used before your compulsory language learning to actually prepare students for learning a language later. They could just be used for fun. They could even be sent home for parents to use for fun preparation for language learning as well. And these, as I said, are for under sevens. So the idea is where Liftoff and In Orbit have 30-minute lessons, these are 15-minute lessons with songs. So they're much, much shorter, and they focus mainly on speaking and listening, so only on communication skills. And within a unit, you'll also find 3 lesson PowerPoints. As I've said, they're about 15 minutes each, and a range of resources: an activity booklet, interactive games, another really cute ebook and story that gives you a chance to read stories aloud and really focus on that area as well, and as well as supporting resources for helping learners such as flashcards and knowledge organisers. These don't have a culture video in every single unit, but they do have separate culture videos that allow you to build up a picture of, you know, language learning in general, with the idea that they're targeting younger learners to get them ready for language learning and to learn a little bit more about culture. So there's also a range of Sparks language videos, culture videos to go with those as well. And just to introduce our really cute characters as well. So as I said, we've got this kind of lightning space intergalactic theme. And these are our 4 kind of space balloon characters. From left to right, we've got Pop, Tok, Lilu, Fleck, the dog, and Lilu. And these characters have had names that, generally speaking, we tried to pick names that were quite flexible, that could work anywhere, that they weren't specific to a language, and they're just really lovable characters that keep appearing throughout and really make the learning really vibrant. So in our song videos, they're dancing around the screen and those sorts of things. So, you know, we really love, you know, as a group of writers, we absolutely love working with these, because they're just such gorgeous characters and really vibrant, and we think they really bring language learning to life and make them really fun for learners as well. And then for older learners, our Liftoff and In Orbit units have the Lightning Languages crew. So we've got Astro, who's the oldest, Sol, Luna and Nova, the 2 girls, and the most important character of all, who is Umi the dog, who is a blue golden retriever. So he is our absolute favorite. So he's probably the leader realistically, but they feature throughout all of the resources, and you know, again, in the song videos, you'll see them dancing and moving around there everywhere, and they're really lovely characters, because they're designed to appeal to anybody, because they are, you know, space aliens with pointy ears. So wherever you're teaching, that they're not designed to you know, to represent any one country or anywhere. That they're just a group of children who are learning languages. That's our most important thing about them. So you know, we really wanted them to be bright and colourful and really keep through the whole lightning vibe. So those are our characters. If you've got any questions on any of that, again, please carry on popping in the chat, and when Emily stopped the recording at the end, we can stop and answer any of those. If you've got anything you want to share, please do carry on popping it in the chat. So just to recap, we've designed Lightning Languages to meet all main curriculum expectations within each unit. So as I've said, we currently have curriculum tick box links for all the UK and Republic of Ireland curricula in each overview at present. Australia, New South Wales and Victorian curriculum documents will be following to meet those. So I want to reassure you that the resources do meet, each unit do meet the curriculum requirements, and we will be giving you the documentation so that you can see how that works. In terms of how many you need to teach or what you need to teach in a year, so for maximum opportunities, I sort of typed something here and it's kind of gone a little bit astray, so I do apologize. For maximum opportunities to meet curriculum requirements, you should at least choose to deliver at least, I think it's supposed to be 1 unit per term in order that suits your timetable, and then 3 to 4 units across the year. Depending, you could do 6 if you could find that you are moving through them quicker, but that will allow students to make substantial progress and really develop more confidence. But also, I wanted this to be flexible. So if you have limited time in your school or with your class, or that they're not quick at making progress with languages, you've got the flexibility to just teach 3 units that year and still feel confident that you're meeting curriculum expectations. If you have more time, or you've got a group of really forward-thinking language learners and you want to progress them quicker, you could teach 6 units a year. We've got a choice. The idea is there are 13 lift-off units and 13 in-orbit lessons, so you can choose the ones that suit you the best. Really, you can actually choose what you prefer. Each individual unit, whichever one you teach, follows a standard progression pathway. So it goes from noun to determiner to phrase and sentence level. So we're constantly building, and we're always asking and answering questions so that students are always making progress and able to have a conversation in every unit. And this really focuses on developing their communication skills and making sure that they're meeting those curriculum objectives and actually using the language and building on it each time. Our sentence building packs in every unit really encourage them to make those connections then and to really embed that language learning. That's what we really focus on. So as I said, each unit is designed to take 3 to 6 lessons. As an absolute minimum, you could deliver the 3 or 4 PowerPoints and that's it. And you could feel confident that you have taught and enabled language progress with those. So the 3 to 4 core PowerPoints will cover reading, writing, speaking and listening, as well as vocabulary, grammar and phonics, and those will last for 30 minutes. Roughly, that's kind of what we're aiming for. You can, however, extend the unit to around 6 weeks by using our bolt-on resources. So you could fill another lesson with the sentence building pack, and then with the assessment, with all of the interactive resources and the retrieval activities to practice as well. Or you could even spread a PowerPoint across a couple of lessons. We have the activity booklet that can be used to work across all of the lessons as well. So it gives you complete flexibility on how you deliver this. And we've got planning documents which are currently being written at the moment, and those will be live on site within the next month, which will give you all of the different pathway options on how to structure a unit and how to actually teach it. So those will be coming on site in the next month as well. Just to remind you, so as I said, progression is fully mapped for the Australian, New South Wales and Victorian curriculum expectations. So in this document here, there's a link in this resource that will give you, fully mapped subject progression across Australia, so you can feel confident the scheme will meet your needs. And whichever scheme that we further develop into with other languages, it will continue to meet those needs. This is just an example of how it's laid out. So it's explaining how it meets the curriculum expectations within each year group. And then you can see, this is an example here down of the Australian curriculum on the left hand side. You've got all of the curriculum expectations, and then the areas that for interacting with oral language, so speaking, how those are met. So we've really made sure to ensure that you can have full confidence that these will meet your curriculum expectations. If you've got any questions on that, or you want to know more about that, please pop them in the chat, or if you want to meet at the end, and I'm happy to explain anything and share with you what's coming. And just to let you know about some others, if you'd like to find out a little bit more We've got our introductory guide. You've got all of the links in these documents here. So we've got our introductory guide, which will give you a bit more of an overview of the scheme and the characters. We've got taster packs for French and Spanish. So these will give you a really good indication and give you a chance to have a look at the overall scheme and actually see what's in there and kind of have a taster of all of the different resources and see what's there. And also, so you've got an idea of what will be coming when we start producing our next languages. And you can kind of see, because they will be kind of, very similar and following that structure. So you've got an idea of understanding what's coming next. And as I've said, our progression maps, they went live this morning, hot off the press. So those are ready for you now so that you can feel confident in Australia, or if you're teaching, that the scheme will meet your needs. That's the most important thing. So that's it from me for now, in terms of everything about Lightning Languages and giving you the overview of it, really. As I said, what I really wanted to do this morning was just to share with you some of the origins of the scheme and why we set it up, and to really help you feel confident that if you're choosing to teach French and Spanish, you can access this scheme and feel really confident that it will also meet your needs in Australia, that it isn't just a case of that you're picking up an English resource and using it and hoping that it fits, but I want you to feel confident that it has been developed in order to fit language teaching wherever you're teaching. I feel hugely passionate about this. It's something I spoke about recently at a conference, was learning from other curricula. And, I'm at pains to point out always, within our team, that we look around and see that there are some things. So we, might base one thing on the English national curriculum, but then you look across to the Scottish one and think, wow, I really like that. That's brilliant. Well, we need to incorporate those elements. That's really important, because, back to the thing I talked about at the very beginning, the aim is to broaden horizons. We want to show children that there is a world outside their doorstep, and there is a world beyond wherever they're living, beyond their town, their city, their country, and that people are speaking a range of languages. And we want them to learn this and to know that languages are important, and to help them, to find their own identity around that. So that's it for me. A huge thank you for giving up your time this evening and coming to listen.